Donald Trump is officially, right now, as you surely know, 3 hours away from making a decision that could outlast his presidency, that could rewrite civil rights protections and abortion laws for a generation. We want to begin by showing you the live view here. This is right outside the Supreme Court. We're told protesters plan a massive demonstration there tonight as a countermeasure to this much-anticipated 9 p.m. announcement Eastern Time for Donald Trump's pick for the High Court. Now, top Democratic senators already vowing to block any nominee he may pick that would overturn Roe v. Wade. At this moment, we can also report there are sources close to the White House saying Trump has already made this decision. No clear leaks, though, on who it would be, but there are rumors about 4 finalists and 2 frontrunners tonight. Judges Brett Kavanaugh and Thomas Hardiman seen as frontrunners. Kavanaugh has worked for the Supreme Court as a clerk, as well as for GOP favorite Ken Starr. He also wrote a controversial decision against an immigrant's right to seek an abortion in the United States. And this is brand new. You can see a New York Times reporter posting this information on Twitter that Kavanaugh was just spotted leaving a federal courthouse in Washington in a black sedan accompanied by, count them, 4 SUVs with security agents. That is a big clue that it is a formal security retinue. More on that in a moment. The other frontrunner, Hardiman, serves on the same appellate court as Trump's sister. His blue-collar background has said to be appealing to Donald Trump. He overturned the conviction of an anti-abortion protester and has been seen as a very reliable supporter of individual gun rights. Meanwhile, the president has been hyping the run-up to tonight's event.
I believe this person will do a great job, but I'm very close to making a decision. Have not made it official yet, obviously. Have not made it final, but we're very close to making a decision.
There are reports that Donald Trump is also concerned about the fight that could occur in this narrowly divided Senate. As you probably know as well, a single Republican defection could tip the balance of the court you see there and allow Democrats to block the pick. That's assuming Democrats are united. But get this, the last time there was one of these situations in the Trump era, 3 Democratic senators backed Donald Trump. Tonight, those 3 you see on your screen, well, they're declining invitations to attend Trump's announcement. Meanwhile, other Democrats say they will do everything in their power to stop a bad pick.
If they vote for somebody who's going to change precedent, it could be a career-ending move.
The president's outsourced this decision to the Federalist Society and the Heritage Foundation. I've never seen a president of the United States, in effect, make himself a puppet.
And if you don't like the ways that this new justice is going to impact everything, speak up, get active, and vote.
Monkey up the works. I mean, Democrats need to be, I think, a little bit more aggressive here. This is a mobilizing moment.
There's a strategic question here, with some Democrats banking on what could be their best hope to win this fight, trying to get moderate Dems to hold the line, push voters to the polls, and get at least one moderate Republican to join them in blocking any pick that Donald Trump makes tonight. I'm joined by my special panel. Brian Fallon worked for Secretary Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, as well as at the Justice Department under Eric Holder. Executive Director of Demand Justice, a group that is spending $5 million opposing Trump's pick, is his current role. Wendy Davis, who many remember as a Texas state senator who filibustered 13 hours trying to block a law that Kennedy ultimately struck down. I'm also joined by former Democratic Senator from Wisconsin, Russ Feingold, who knows a lot about these fights as well as the money that can affect them, and Kristen Clark, a President and Executive Director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. A dealer's choice, I could start anywhere, given a lot of the expertise here, but Senator, having been through some of these fights, I start with you. What are the stakes tonight?
Well, they couldn't be higher, and I think it's clear.
And my apologies, 2 senators, my fault. So Senator Feingold first, then Senator Davis.
Hello, Senator Davis. Listen, the stakes couldn't possibly be higher. And what we have here is the United States Supreme Court is really changing its character. First of all, it was stolen. This whole seat was stolen, the Scalia seat. And then after that, what you have is a president who wasn't even elected by the majority of Americans being able to pick that replacement instead of Barack Obama. And now you have the president picking more people when he's under investigation for probably illegal activity both before and after he became president. So what we really have here is the United States Supreme Court is becoming a kangaroo court. And the definition of a kangaroo court is a court where the outcome is predetermined.
And Senator Davis, as we look at the Supreme Court where many activists are gathering tonight, I want to play for you a person who has become sort of the shadow president in the Trump era when it comes to these appointments. As you know, not a household name, but so important, Leonard Leo, who runs the Federalist Society. And what I'm saying may sound like a criticism. It may make Donald Trump sound like he's taking a kind of a back seat, but it's what he and his advisors stressed as far back as the campaign, that he wasn't going to really make these decisions himself. Take a listen to Mr. Leo playing down the threat to Roe v. Wade.
Is it fair to say that anyone who made it onto your list is likely to be an opponent of Roe v. Wade?
No. First of all, nobody really knows. So I think it's a bit of a scare tactic and rank speculation more than anything else.
Senator Davis, is that correct?
I cannot imagine for a minute that that is correct. The Federalist Society has as one of its primary goals overturning Roe v. Wade. And I highly doubt that they would create a list of potential judicial nominees if they weren't fairly certain that the people that were on that list were those who were going to be a vote to overturn Roe on the Supreme Court. And
Kristen, your view of that?
I think that's right. All of the nominees on President Trump's short list were handpicked, cherry-picked by the Federalist Society and the Heritage Foundation. And we know, because President Trump has made clear over and over again that his goal is to appoint 2 or 3 justices to this court who will overturn Roe versus Wade. So there is every expectation to believe that the person he identifies as the nominee tonight is somebody who will carry out his agenda. And so it's time for the Senate to do its job. This fight is not over. It is just beginning. It's time for the Senate to properly and fully vet the nominee identified by the president tonight. We can't return to a world in which the reproductive rights and freedom of women is cast aside.
And Senator Feingold, on the latest news here, as everyone is bracing for what could be this gigantic fight, I wonder your view of the significance of something we can put on the screen. A New York Times reporter noting just moments ago that there's this buzz at the U.S. courthouse because Brett Kavanaugh was spotted leaving in a black sedan with 4 black SUVs with security agents. In the Times' careful phrasing, he said presumed to be Secret Service. As you know, Senator Feingold, there's an expression about people who roll deep or roll with many cars. But that many SUVs is a pretty clear signal. Does that change your analysis? Go ahead.
No, I mean, look, it doesn't matter which of the 4 it is. It doesn't matter which of the 25 it is. This is a predetermined situation. Senator Bob Casey had it right today when he put out a tweet and said, I'm voting against this nominee because all of this is part of a corrupt deal made by big corporations and by the Republicans and by Trump. It has nothing to do with the merits of the individual candidate. It has everything to do with delegitimizing the Supreme Court and destroying one of the most important institutions of our country.
Brian?
Well, yeah, Ari, I mean, certainly we don't know yet who the pick is going to be, but if it's Brett Kavanaugh, this is somebody that fits the Trump litmus test to a T. And I think that the case that those of us on the progressive side of things will make against somebody like Brett Kavanaugh is just go through the issues. Number one, Roe. In addition to the president's litmus test, Brett Kavanaugh himself has given speeches praising the dissent in the Roe v. Wade case. On ACA, Brett Kavanaugh did not join the opinion upholding the ACA when it came before the D.C. Circuit, and in fact, he gave a speech criticizing the rationale Justice Roberts used to uphold the ACA. And then the coup de grace, the number 3 issue, and the one that's probably most resonant with Donald Trump, is Brett Kavanaugh has been outspoken for the last 20 years about his view that a sitting president cannot be indicted and that a president should be able to get to cherry pick who gets to investigate him and fire them for any reason. That is probably music to Donald Trump's ears. So I think those are the 3 issues you're going to hear to frame the case against Brett Kavanaugh if indeed this motorcade coming out of the D.C. Circuit Courthouse is any indication.
Right, and we don't know why he was in that situation, but we do know that's a rare situation. You don't see that kind of security for most federal judges walking around or leaving court, Wendy. Take a listen to Donald Trump in October 2016. In a statement that I know for your group and people affiliated with your organization would find chilling, which was he said basically, if he gets 2 to 3 picks, Roe goes automatically. And we're speaking here tonight, hours away from his 2nd pick. Take a listen.
Do you want to see the court overturn Roe v. Wade?
Well, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court.
Contrast that to a large pro-life organization, the Federalist Society, that's created this list that we just showed denying it. I mean, your group is, you've spoken out and been pro-choice. These other groups seem to be pro-life up until the moment we have a confirmation fight, and then they back away from it when their own candidate here, now president, has said this is what he's here to do. This is pick number 2 in a stated public vow to overturn Roe.
Right. I mean, we're in a very precarious situation because, as you mentioned earlier, Ari, we have 3 Democrats who actually went along with the former Trump pick. So what's going to happen with them? Can we depend or rely on pressure with Susan Collins actually to reject any of these picks? The answer is likely no. And the question then becomes, what will the public response be? Will we finally understand that when we are abrogating our responsibility to vote for Senate leaders and a president who is going to place a Supreme Court that has respect in the constitutional values that have existed for decades, when we abrogate our responsibility to do that, we lose our rights in very significant and important ways. And it's my hope that this will be a rally cry for Democrats all over the country, particularly moderate, independent women who, for a long time, felt that this was something that was never going to happen. This was a right we could take for granted. And I think tonight we're going to find the answer to that. That right is no longer going to exist.
Well, and Kristen, speak to that, to Wendy's point, broadening it out to other civil rights and other forms of progress that people consider. Because Justice Kennedy's legacy, of course, among other things, is being a relatively conservative Republican who advanced marriage equality in the United States. Obviously, we're looking at certain jurists who, if they replace that one vote and that issue comes back up, it would go the other way. We know where the majority, the Chief Justice, Roberts is. We know where the potential majority on the court is. So how do those issues figure in as well, and how does that play into the midterms if people think that you have Democrats who don't seem to be able to stop the worst things in Washington in their view?
There is no shortage of incredibly important civil rights cases that are making their way up the Supreme Court pipeline, and cases that will be before the court next term. Cases dealing with gerrymandering will return to the court, voting rights cases, criminal justice. And you're right, Justice Kennedy has been a critical swing vote on marriage equality, on fair housing cases, on race-conscious admissions policies in the higher ed context, and so much more. And so the balance of the court is at stake with this nomination. I will say this, that this fight is not over. It's now time for the Senate to do its job. They should not rubber stamp President Trump's nominee this evening. We need thorough hearings to understand the records underlying all of the folks on President Trump's shortlist. He has said over and over again that his commitment is to overturning Roe and to gutting health care, which would impact the lives of vulnerable Americans all over the country. And it's time for us to vote and recognize that elections have consequences in our country. It's not just the Supreme Court, but we've seen President Trump make damaging selections to district and circuit courts all across our country. And so exercising the right to vote really is key.
So, Brian, on the strategy here, what do you see as the best road to actually stopping the pick?
Well, I think that the analog situation here is the healthcare debate last year. There, too, people started off thinking that Democrats didn't have much of a shot of stopping the repeal effort, but we did 2 things. We successfully united Democrats, and then we successfully peeled off these same moderate Republicans that we'll be targeting in this Supreme Court fight. And the ACA is actually, I think, alongside Roe, going to be a defining issue in the consideration of Trump's pick. I say that because, Ari, as you know, just last month, the administration took the exceedingly rare step of declaring it would not be defending the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act in a lawsuit that has been brought by a bunch of Republican state attorneys general down in Texas. The district court judge presiding over that case in Texas is a former John Cornyn chief counsel, former political staffer for John Cornyn. I can't imagine he's going to be very hospitable to an argument defending the ACA. Then, in that case, you could have it heard that case be heard by the Fifth Circuit, which is the most conservative circuit in the United States. So this challenge to the ACA brought by the Trump administration and Republican state attorneys general could very well end up in the lap of the Supreme Court. We could have a third case in front of the Supreme Court. I think as a result, you're going to see a lot of questions asked of this nominee on ACA. Trump himself said he would only nominate somebody that would rule the opposite way of John Roberts and declare the ACA unconstitutional. And the salience of this, Ari, as we know, the ACA is an issue that unites our caucus and also can help peel off Collins and Murkowski. And just tonight, Joe Manchin, in indicating that he was declining the White House's invitation to go be there for the announcement of the nominee, said that the #1 issue he's going to use for assessing Trump's pick is whether that person will uphold the constitutionality of pre-existing conditions. So look for this issue to be one that could perhaps unite those moderate red state Democrats in Trump-won states.
Well, that's very interesting coming from you, being involved in the fight, and the notion that this is a different kind of battle between ACA, between the real vote counting going on with Roe, and then the wild card of the Mueller probe and how this person might rule on things that affect existential questions in the Trump presidency. So almost impossible to predict. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.